Mainland activists jailed for supporting the Occupy movement. New twist to Betty Fung's property swap controversy. And the security secretary denies wrongdoing in the luggage case involving the CE's daughter.
Hello and a very good evening. 4 mainland activists have been jailed across the border for voicing support for the Occupy movement in Hong Kong back in 2014. They were found guilty of inciting subversion of state power. Evelyn Leung reports.
The defendants were sentenced at the Guangzhou Intermediate People's Court today. Security was tight as authorities made their presence felt outside the courthouse. Some were seen using umbrellas to block the media's view. Family members of the defendants staged a protest outside the court, but they were promptly taken away by the authorities. The 4 defendants, Wang Mo, Xie Fengsha, Liang Qinghui, and Zhang Shengyu, were accused of inciting subversion of state power. In sentencing, the judge said Wang and Xie had stirred up trouble many times in the past. The court heard that in one such case, in October 2014 in Guangzhou, the pair wore T-shirts that said, "When people fear the government, that is tyranny," and held up banners calling for freedom and support for Hong Kong. They were also said to have posted pictures of their protests on the internet. Wang and Xie were blamed for inciting the public to support the Occupy movement in Hong Kong. They were each jailed for 4.5 years. The court also heard another defendant, Zhang Shengyu, held up placards in Guangzhou voicing support for the civil disobedience movement. He was slapped with a 4-year jail term. The 4th defendant, Liang Qinghui, was found guilty of posting sensitive comments online. He was sentenced to 1.5 years in prison. At least 3 of the defendants, Wang, Xie, and Liang, said they will appeal their sentence. Wang's lawyer complained that his client's sentence is too harsh. He said the verdict is a suppression of freedom of speech and goes against the one country, two systems policy. The lawyer added Beijing has promised Hong Kong that it could continue with its capitalist system, which means the SAR should be able to work towards genuine universal suffrage. So, voicing support for the Occupy movement should not be considered a crime. He also added his client believes his actions are part of his civil rights. The Occupy movement began in Hong Kong in September 2014 and lasted 79 days. It was aimed at bringing universal suffrage to the SAR. Evelyn Leung, TVB News.
An official of the central government's liaison office said today advocating Hong Kong independence goes against the basic law. Wang Zhenmin, the legal affairs chief of the liaison office, said those who do so could be found guilty of violating the society's ordinance for organising activities of an unlawful group. He also warned they could be found guilty of incitement under the crimes ordinance. Wang insisted that Hong Kong is not an independent nation and that many people are very worried about the current situation.
New developments in a conflict of interest controversy, one involving Permanent Secretary for Home Affairs Betty Fung, her husband Wilson Fung, and a relative of Macau tycoon Stanley Ho. It's been revealed that Wilson Fung signed property-related documents for Ho's sister-in-law, Cheyenne Chan. But it's unclear whether his wife knew anything about it. Winna Wong has more.
The latest twist to this conflict of interest controversy involves a flat in Peace Court on Conduit Road. Cheyenne Chan's company Wyson Limited sold the property in 2013. According to the land registry and other transaction documents, a Feng Wai Yip or Wilson Fung had signed the papers for and on behalf of Wyson Limited. Fung is currently executive director for corporate development at the Airport Authority and a former senior government official. His wife is Permanent Secretary for Home Affairs Betty Fung. This morning, she did not leave her home for work as usual. Instead, she was seen boarding a van with a domestic helper and a suitcase. At an event, her boss, Secretary for Home Affairs Lau Kong-wah, simply said she had taken the day off. The scandal erupted last week. Reports revealed that in 2013, Betty Fong made an agreement to swap flats with Wyson Limited. This was 9 months before her husband had allegedly signed papers for Peace Court on behalf of Wyson. In a statement earlier this week, she said she did not know the other party in the property swap deal. Wyson took a unit in 1 Robinson Place, while Betty Fong got 2 conjoined flats at Singwu Crescent at Happy Valley, which is where they live now. Fong had allegedly paid around $6.5 million for their new home, below the market price. Overall, it was reported that they managed to save up to $4 million in cash and tax. Cheyenne Chan is also a shareholder of Sky Shuttle, a commercial helicopter service between Sheungwan and Macau. Between 2003 and 2006, Wilson Fong was a civil servant in charge of aviation affairs. During his time there, he handled helicopter airport expansions and other related policies. The anti-graft body is investigating the case. Former ICAC Chief Investigator Stephen Cha says it might be difficult for the anti-corruption agency to make its case in court because there's been a 10-year gap between Fong working in the government and his wife exchanging flats with Wyson. He also said there is a question of whether Betty Fong was aware of her husband's relationship with Chan. Winna Wong, TVB News.
Meanwhile, the security chief insisted no security procedures were breached in the incident involving the chief executive's daughter at the airport last month. The chief executive has once again denied abusing his power in helping her retrieve her baggage. Rachel Lung reports.
Speaking to the media this evening, the chief executive once again denied he had abused his power in the case involving his daughter at the airport last month. Leung Chun-ying insisted if he and his family had really wanted to do so, they would have contacted top management of the airline or the security firm involved. However, they didn't do that. Leung said they simply asked the frontline staff to see what can be done. The airport authority has also denied any wrongdoing. It released a statement saying that the situation was handled in accordance with existing security procedures. The Secretary for Security also defended the actions of the airport staff. Lai Tong-kwok insisted the CE's daughter did not receive any special treatment.
I think the overriding principle is that all hand carrier luggages who has been brought into the departure restricted area of the airport have to pass through the standard security check, which means that having checked the baggage, it has satisfied the relevant requirements that this baggage will not cause any injury or harm to either persons or to the aircraft.
He added there have been similar cases in the past. Lai was also asked about the airport rules that say that in such cases, passengers have to identify their own luggage and go through security checks again. The security chief explained that as long as the baggage has gone through security checks, the owner has been identified and it poses no flying risks, then the item can be delivered to the restricted area. But lawmakers are still not satisfied with Lai's answers.
They try to explain that there are cases in the past whereby the same thing had happened, and there are special cases. But then you should give us figures and give us the cases. What are so special about the previous cases?
The government said it will further investigate the matter after the airport authority submits a report on the incident to the Legislative Council. Rachel Ling, TVB News.
British Prime Minister David Cameron admitted he's among a long list of rich and influential people around the globe who found themselves under siege over the leak of the Panama Papers. Alan Booknia has the latest in the scandal involving secretive financial accounts and shell companies in low tax havens.
The uproar has brought down the Prime Minister of Iceland and raised questions about the leaders of Argentina, Ukraine, and Russia. A trove of 11.5 million confidential banking records were leaked from the Panama-based law firm Mossack Fonseca. The company says it was hacked. Now, British Prime Minister David Cameron is among those caught up in the controversy. He admitted having profited from part of his £300,000 inheritance after his father's death in 2010. Cameron said he and his wife had owned shares in the Panamanian trust Blairmore, but had sold them before he became Prime Minister.
I paid income tax on the dividends, but there was a profit on it, but it was less than the capital gains tax allowance, so I didn't pay capital gains tax, but it was subject to all the UK taxes in all the normal ways.
Russian President Vladimir Putin denied having any links to the accounts, calling it a US-led plot to weaken Russia. They are trying to destabilize us from within in order to make us more compliant, he said. While Putin's name doesn't appear on any of the leaked documents, some of his close friends and family members do. In Argentina, a federal prosecutor has called for an investigation into President Mauricio Macri. Macri, the son of an Italian-born business tycoon, says he has nothing to hide in relation to his links to an offshore company revealed in the Panama Papers. He says he is not legally obliged to declare his connection to the firm and says he never had a stake in it. Hundreds of protesters rallied in Buenos Aires yesterday, demanding that Macri resign. There were also protests in Iceland as demonstrators called for the resignation of the entire government and new elections. Sigmundur David Gunnlaugsson stepped down as prime minister this week because of links to an offshore account. He and his wife were both implicated in the scandal. Yesterday, former Fisheries Minister Sigurdur Inga Johansson officially took over as Prime Minister after an agreement was reached between the two coalition partners. The government has promised to hold an election in the fall, but critics want it immediately. Alan Bucknett, TVB News.
Interest rates in the United States are on track to go up further. That's according to the head of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen. She said the American economy is on a solid course of growth, with some hints of inflation. She also defended the Fed's move to raise interest rates last year.
The U.S. economy has been doing well, and domestic strength has been propelling us forward in spite of the fact that we're suffering a drag from the global economy. We think a gradual path of rate increases will be appropriate and stand ready to adjust what we do depending on how our views of the economy evolve. So I think we remain on a reasonable path, and I don't think that December was a mistake.
Former Cuban leader Fidel Castro has made a rare public appearance. State TV showed the 89-year-old former president visiting a school in Havana yesterday. The trip marked the birthday of his sister-in-law and fellow revolutionary Vilma Espin. She was married to his brother and current president Raul Castro. She died in 2007 at the age of 77. The former president honored those who died fighting for the revolution. He'll turn 90 in August. He handed over power to Raul back in 2008 after he fell ill and has kept a low profile in recent years. Fidel Castro did not meet with U.S. President Barack Obama when he visited the island last month, but he did write a scathing editorial about Obama's historic visit.
And still ahead in the news tonight. Arrest over assault at Beijing hotel. Second round of migrant arrivals in Turkey under EU deal. And Jordan Spieth has the hot hand at the Masters.